So we've got coalition talk, messages of fear, personal attacks, and polarization, and just 6 days to go now before Canadians make their decision at the ballot box. Right now, time for our panel of party commentators. Greg MacEachern is a Liberal commentator, Ashton Arsenault is a Conservative commentator, and Anne McGrath is an NDP commentator. Good to see you all. And let me start with you in this ongoing conversation around coalition and so on. We have Jagmeet Singh on the weekend, in answer to a question, saying absolutely he's prepared to work on a coalition with the Liberals to stop a Conservative government. Kind of trying to walk it back a little bit now. But what is he saying? And I'm wondering, if you say it, can you walk it back? Or we know what you're thinking now, so what's the point of saying, well, no, I'm not focused on that. I'm now focused on winning again. What's he trying to tell us?
He's saying that he's running for Prime Minister, and he's also saying that, whatever the results are of this election, that he's prepared to work with other people to advance the 6 priorities that he laid out. Things like, affordable housing, pharmacare, interest rates off student loans, those kinds of things. So he's got these priorities, and they're urgent, and he wants to work on those, and he wants to do it as Prime Minister. But if he's not Prime Minister, he's also willing to work with other people in Parliament to try and get those things done. So, it's been interesting listening to the conversation over the last few days and how it's shifted. But I think a lot of people are confusing minority governments with coalitions.
Right. And he's not talking about coalition necessarily. He's
saying that we don't know what the outcome.
You don't really know what you get till the vote's in.
As a matter of fact, the outcome, if you look at like seat projections, the different seat projections and stuff, most of them look like it's very hard to tell what will happen. And a lot of the scenarios that I'm hearing are, kind of
right, but his message, but Greg, his message is clear. His message is, look, I'll do whatever I have to do. Well, maybe it's not clear to you, but I'll do it. No, but at the end of the day, we don't know what we're going to see till we get a result in the election and we see what the Parliament looks like, right? Yep. But he's clearly saying, I'm prepared to do whatever I have to do to stop a Conservative government from governing if they win.
Absolutely, and I will, not to quibble, but if you are walking something back, then it wasn't clear. Anne is absolutely right. There is a lot of muddying of the water here between what is a coalition and what's a minority. Anne and I have both worked in minority governments. We may have different opinions about how they worked out. But the reality is, on Election Day, Canadians are going to give the parties a mandate. And we have a House of Commons, we have a parliamentary system, and there are rules. And what the outcome is, the rules are set up. When it's pretty easy when it's a majority, we know that, where the government will sit, right. Committees, who's going to have majority. When it's a minority, it's a lot more complicated. And governments have to figure that out.
Yeah, we've had experience in this country. I mean, I talked about it earlier in the program. We had minority governments in half of the Harper years.
Sure, 2006, 2008, yeah. 2004.
So we have experience with them, and not coalitions though, not sort of formal written, where you think of coalitions. I think most people that follow this think coalition governments are a government where the cabinet might be shared with different parties. That's not what we saw in this country.
No, and I think that's the problem, is that some people are being disingenuous, suggesting that, to be fair to Mr. Singh, his willingness to work with another party when he knows he's not going to be Prime Minister is probably not a bad thing for Canadians. But trying to cast it as some sort of cabal or something nefarious, that's to the Conservatives a benefit, but it's also wrong.
Well,
go ahead, Ashton.
Yeah, I'll just say that first of all, Mr. Singh's been waffling on this one a little bit, and with all due respect to Anne, this is somebody that more or less conceded the race before it even began. He said quite matter-of-factly that he wasn't going to be Prime Minister. But what we're seeing over the last few days is parties on the left stacking together and realizing that with some Conservative momentum, there's a real chance that they might get close to majority numbers, and now they're sort of talking behind the scenes and trying to figure out whether or not they can come to some sort of an arrangement.
Well, where do you see the Conservative momentum? I mean, every poll suggests they're still deadlocked, and both Liberals and Conservatives deadlocked, and their support dropping while the NDP support's going up.
Exactly. The NDP support's going up, and the Bloc support is going up, and then we're starting to talk about three-way and four-way splits.
We talk about vote splits and the possibility of...
Exactly. If you look at all seat projection models right now, in the last week and a half, the Conservatives have overtaken the Liberals for the first time in the campaign.
Yeah, I guess I would quibble with the notion of momentum as opposed to what's changing, in the dynamic changing in the campaign might be advantageous to Conservatives.
Yeah, and a seat projection that shows someone up by 1 seat, and it's a seat projection model, I wouldn't go to the bank on that either.
Yeah.
So I spent most of the summer and the first part of September responding to people saying, so are you guys dead yet? You know, basically that was, you know, the whole, that was
By the very fact you were able to answer, the man says the answer is no.
But really, you know, people were saying we didn't have candidates, we didn't have money, we didn't have momentum, we were, you know, we were flailing. Was this going to be the end? So that was a lot of the chatter most of the summer and the early part of the fall. And then what's happened is, as I think a lot of us said during that time, was that Jagmeet has outperformed those expectations, run a decent campaign, had very good debate performances, and his personal approvals came up quite significantly. Then the story was, okay, your personal approvals are great, but the party's still nowhere, and the vote intention isn't changing. Now the vote intention is changing, right? So the dynamic is shifting quite significantly right now, and there are a lot of possibilities. This is a parliamentary democracy. We're not in an American Republican state. We don't elect a president. We elect a parliament, and then there are different formulations that can happen in the British Westminster system.
So how do, like, what are you supposed to? What's the message you're supposed to be hearing here if you're a voter who doesn't follow the minutiae of minority parliaments and everything? You're getting a message from every party that's a little bit different here. Jagmeet Singh saying, look, yeah, I'm running for Prime Minister, but if you want the kinds of things I'm talking about, make sure you elect as many NDPers as you can, because we'll push, you know, whoever is government will push, and if it happens to be this working together with another party, so be it.
And he's saying vote for what you want. Don't be scared into voting.
And the
for
Liberals are
you
saying,
don't
look, the only way you stop Andrew Scheer is to vote for Liberals. That's the only way you do it. And
That's accurate.
Well, is it?
Well, I mean,
or if you get a bunch of progressive parties that can band together in some kind of working arrangement, that's how you stop Conservatives.
Yeah, but will be portrayed as a poison pill 1 week before the election. I mean, one of my issues with this question is that it's, as much as I like to defend journalists, it is a bit of a lazy question. It always happens when the polls get really tight, and I think Mr. Singh was a bit naive, and he fell for the hypothetical question. And instead of talking about issues, you end up talking about who you're going to be friends with, when not all Canadians are as engrossed into how Parliament works. As Anne and I have just been saying, this is the way our system is. But if you were to hear some Conservatives, including the leader, talk, it has never ever happened in any parliamentary system before. The reality is, whether it was my party working with Anne's party back in 2004, 72 to 74, call it a coalition, call it whatever you want, but there's no way that a minority government survives unless they're working with another party. That's just the reality.
Well, there were lots of examples when in the Harper minority where Liberals were working with the Conservatives to have that minority survive.
Don't remind me.
Yeah,
look at that. So, like, go ahead.
Sure. There's a couple of scenarios in sort of Canadian modern politics when it comes to minority parliaments, right? It's either issue by issue basis, which is what the Conservatives did from 2006 to about 2010. Then you've got sort of more formalized supply arrangements, which is what they have out in BC right now. And the extreme version is a formal coalition where you sort of get party swapping and sitting in the same cabinet, which we haven't had since the First World War, right? So depending on what the outcome is, and we won't know that until Election Day, we'll sort of get a sense of what we'll possibly be looking at. But in terms of a formal coalition, extremely rare in Canadian history.
Well, the other thing I would add to that is that following an election, there may be some other outcomes where, for example, in 2006, former Prime Minister Martin resigned on election night. So all of a sudden that puts a party into paralysis. Some of the things
they don't want a snap election.
Yeah, so exactly. So there are other outcomes that will happen, and that may extend the life of a minority government. Last time I checked, I think a minority government federally in Canada lasts about 18 months, and there's reasons for that.
Yeah. There are lots of examples, though, of New Democrats operating very effectively in minority governments with or without the balance of power. So even, for instance, in 2004, when Paul Martin got a minority government, we were short the number of seats for balance of power, but we're still able to negotiate a budget amendment of $4.6 billion from corporate tax cuts into affordable housing, First Nations support, post-secondary public transit.
I mean, I think people can see possibilities for progressive parties if that's what's required for the Liberals to stay in government is some sort of working relationship with other parties in Parliament. The Greens and New Democrats, I think, are obvious choices. What's the path to staying in power if the Conservatives win a minority government?
Yeah, look, I think...
Who do they do a deal with?
I think Andrew Scheer was pretty clear today that they're going to campaign for a majority over the next 6 days.
What if they don't get it?
If they don't get it, then we'll have to assess options. But my question, first and foremost, would be, if the Prime Minister fails to win the plurality of seats on election night? Will he follow the track record of his father in '79 and Paul Martin in 2006 and resign and allow a new party to form government, or will he try to fight and claw and stay with left parties so that they can form a minority? That's a legitimate question. But in terms of
both options are allowed, are they not?
They absolutely are. And as the Prime Minister, he's got the first prerogative of holding confidence of the House, regardless of the outcome. But what I will say is, in terms of the Conservative staying power, if it is a minority situation, of course, we haven't talked about the Bloc Québécois yet. Perhaps there could be an agreement there. But those are negotiations that start taking place after all the chips
What are the
counted.
optics of anybody doing a deal with the Bloc?
It's happened before. I mean, that's a Harper. The Harper government stayed in power with the support of the Bloc. It wasn't a formalized arrangement, but certainly they did that.
Yeah, it was an issue-by-issue basis.
Okay. What's the last 6 days of the campaign about, Greg?
It's really tough to cut through the noise right now. So you're trying to find some way that you're going to reach the people that are most likely to vote for you. That sounds very obvious, but to look at Justin Trudeau, today he's in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. Those are three provinces with pretty much one media base. So if you're in one province, you will reach three. So that's why they're doing that. They probably won't be back to the East Coast this election. You'll see Trudeau going to Quebec, GTA, and BC. And basically it's about holding what they have, trying to add a few more at this point. There are certain seats where they're looking at, say, I would say like London Fanchois, where Irene Matheson is no longer running. Right. She held the seat for a long time. Jobs are a big issue there. Anything like Southwest Ontario is around.
So we see them. We'll see them going to either shore up support or try to grow support.
Absolutely.
Ashton?
Yeah, same thing. So Quebec, GTA, BC, you could probably expect Scheer to be there in the last couple of days of the campaign. Absolutely. And his message is going to be very, very clear at this point. A vote for any party other than the Conservative Party of Canada is an endorsement, frankly, of a high tax and unending deficit government for the foreseeable future, and that's the reality. The NDP and the Liberals have more or less said, without explicitly stating so, that they'd be more than glad to work together as long as the Conservatives don't win, and I'm sure the Green Party will pile right on in behind them.
So with the surge in support for the NDP and Jagmeet Singh, I think it's going to be about looking at some of those seats that might not have been in play before and trying to shore up some support in those and see what there is there to capture from the momentum that we've seen in the last week or so of this campaign.
Let me do quick final, and I'll frame it this way. It seems the last few days, and I suspect the remaining days of the campaign are going to be wrapped around this notion of fear. You know, fear of the Conservatives, and really you got to fear the New Democrats. You got to vote Liberal. Fear of the coalition, and maybe a slight twist here. Don't fear.
I think ours is hope.
You might be the don't fear side that says.
I think we're the hopeful, optimistic campaign, and I think that that's actually part of the success that Jagmeet has had. Is he is seen as he's a good campaigner. He looks happy. He is relentlessly optimistic and positive, and I think that that's partly what is really gathering a lot of momentum behind him.
Greg and then Ash.
Well, I think the Liberals have made their points about the environment and social issues. I think they really have to hit home that the economy's done well. There's been a huge amount of jobs created. I think they have to accentuate those positives to try to do what Justin Trudeau said in Montreal in 2014. The Conservatives are our friends. We should be trying to get their votes. I think we want to see Liberals trying to appeal to Conservatives that are not happy with Andrew Scheer. We know they exist because of the Peter MacKay speculation last week. So I think there's some room there for the Liberals to move.
Ashton?
Yeah, a couple of things. Going after the soft Liberal vote, so the switch vote, very important in terms of message contrast over these last couple of days. And I'll just point out one thing. Apparently we're up 25% in advance voting this time around over 2015. I suspect that'll factor into the calculus of the ground game.
I wonder. When I saw that, I did a little research. I mean, there's a couple of things to consider, right? There were longer hours this time and more days and more
people
polling.
Are used to the convenience of it.
More polling stations, good weather, largely good weather. So I'm not sure it means there's a mood to vote, or whether it was just easier to do it this time around.
Historically not great for incumbents, but this campaign's sort of been, you know, a who's who of we don't know, so we'll figure it out.
I hope that those numbers do mean that we'll have a higher voter turnout. I'm not sure whether
no matter how people vote. Be good to see people
I hope that that's what happens. But it is also true that there are all those factors as well. The political parties, the major political parties, put a lot of focus on advance voting now, because if you can get those votes in the box before E-Day, then you're not focusing on your decideds.
All right, thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, Peter.